November 12, 1943. The Col de la Lombard, 2,350 meters above sea level. A blizzard rolling east across the Maritime Alps. A man stops in waist-deep snow with a 4-year-old girl strapped across his back in a wool shawl. He is not a soldier. He is not a partisan. He is a salt smuggler from the village of Venadio. And tonight, he is moving 14 Jewish refugees across the spine of Europe. The girl on his back is named Esther. She has not spoken since Cannes. Her mother walks 3 paces behind, breathing through a strip of sheepskin pressed against her teeth so the cold air will not crack her lungs. 2 boys, an old rabbi from Strasbourg, a pregnant woman from Antwerp, the rest of them stretching back along the trail in a line that bends with the wind. The smuggler counts them every 50 steps. 14 ahead of him, 14 behind, 14 still alive. His name is Francesco Lanza, 34 years old. He was born in this valley, and he learned the upper paths from his father, who learned them from his father, who walked tobacco and salt between Piemonte and the Var when the Savoyards still owned both sides of the ridge. By the time he was 11, Francesco could tell from the color of the fog on the granite walls of the Lombard whether a man could cross or whether the mountain would eat him before morning. Tonight the fog is the wrong color. Tonight he is crossing anyway. In his coat pocket he carries a goat leather pouch. Inside the pouch, a folded paper. On the paper, a list of names in a careful pencil hand. 243 names. Some of them have a thin line drawn through the surname. Those were the ones who did not make it. The line is short and it is straight, and Francesco draws it himself with the stub of a pencil whenever the news reaches him down in the village. By the end of the winter, the list will hold 811 names. About a third of those numbers will be Jewish women and children. The rest will be men of fighting age, French resistance couriers, escaped Italian soldiers, 2 downed RAF pilots, a Belgian rabbi, a Polish chess master, an Austrian communist who taught violin in Vienna before the Anschluss. None of them would have crossed alone. None of them would have crossed without Lanza. By the end of the same winter, the Sicherheitsdienst will have shot one of his brothers, arrested his sister in Borgo San Dalmazzo, and put a price of 50,000 lire on his head. They will catch one of his couriers in February 1944 and break his fingers 1 knuckle at a time until the courier dies without speaking. The salt smuggler will keep walking. How does an illiterate man from a 400-soul mountain village outwit 2 armies and a state apparatus that has murdered millions in its own zone? And why does he refuse, even at the end, to stay on the safe side of the pass? He has 14 people behind him. He has another 14 waiting in a Saint Martin Vesubie cellar. He has no rifle. He has the goat leather pouch, the upper trail his grandfather mapped in 1879, and a pencil stub. Tomorrow morning, the Waffen SS unit assigned to the Vesubie Valley will receive new orders. The orders will name him. The orders will name the children. But right now, on the Col de la Lombard, with the wind shifting half a point to the northeast, Francesco Lanza is reading the granite walls and deciding how much further he can push the line before someone in it stops moving. To understand how an Alpine smuggler ended up carrying a 4-year-old girl across the spine of Europe in a blizzard, the story has to go back. Not far back, 65 days, to the morning when the trap closed, September 8, 1943. Italy surrenders to the Allies. The radios in every farmhouse from Cuneo to the sea pour out the announcement in a thin, flat voice. Marshal Badoglio reads it like a man reading a weather report. The Wehrmacht has been waiting for this. Within 48 hours, German divisions are pouring across the Brenner Pass and down the Aosta Valley. Within 72 hours, every Italian-held zone in occupied France is being swept by SS Einsatz units who have a list of names and faces and an appetite that has been growing for 2 years. Until that morning, the village of Saint Martin Vesubie, 90 kilometers north of Nice, on the French side of the Maritime Alps, has been the strangest place in occupied Europe. Italian soldiers garrison it, and an Italian inspector general named Guido Lo Spinoso, sent from Rome to enforce the racial laws in the southern zone, has spent the months since his appointment ignoring every order from Berlin and Rome to deport the Jewish refugees in his sector. Lo Spinoso is no propaganda hero. He is a senior official with a long nose for what he can survive. By the summer of 1943, his Italian zone is sheltering well over 1,000 Jews from across occupied Europe. They live openly. They walk to the village square. They light candles in the evening. They believe the war might not reach them. On September 8th, the Italian soldiers vanish in a single night. Some of them join the partisans. Most of them throw their uniforms in a hedge and walk home. Lo Spinoso disappears north into Italy and is not seen in the sector again. By the morning of September 9th, there is no army between Saint-Martin-Vesubie and the SS. The refugees have one route out, and it is the wall of mountains rising behind the village. They start walking that same afternoon, whole families in city shoes, mothers carrying babies, old men in 3 coats, one over the other, because they have nothing else they can take. They climb the road toward Madone de Fenestre, then up the gorge to the Pas du Diable, 2,000 meters. Then down the other side into Italy. The first wave of refugees crosses on September 10th, 11th, and 12th. They reach the village of Entrac on the Italian side, and they discover almost immediately that they have walked from one enemy into the arms of another. The Wehrmacht has already entered the Cuneo plain. Within 10 days, the SS will arrest 349 of them in Borgo San Dalmazzo. By the spring of 1944, 328 of those 349 will be dead, mostly at a place that none of them have yet heard the name of, in southern Poland. Francesco Lanza is in Venadio, on the Italian side, when the first refugees stumble into Entrac. He hears about them at the wine cellar on the evening of September 12th. 40 Jews, 60 Jews, nobody can count properly. They are sleeping in barns. The local priest is hiding 8 in his sacristy. Lanza listens. He drinks his wine. He goes home and he does not sleep that night. In the morning, he walks to the parish house and tells the priest, Don Raimondo Viale, that he wants the names of the families. All of them. Where they came from. Who is sick. Who has children. Lanza cannot read or write much. Don Viale writes them out for him in a careful hand on a sheet of paper. The sheet of paper goes into a goat leather pouch that, until the previous Tuesday, had carried 200 grams of contraband Sicilian tobacco. The pouch goes inside Lanza's coat. The coat goes back up into the mountains. This trail will save 808 lives. The 3 it does not save are already written into the future of this story, in pencil, with a thin, straight line through each surname. By the end of September, Lanza is making 3 crossings a week. By October, the German command in Nice realizes that the Vesubie refugees have not all surrendered, that hundreds of them are turning up on the Italian side and disappearing into a network the SD cannot map. They begin to push. They send a Sicherheitsdienst captain named Müller, a man with a thin mouth and a Bavarian accent, to take over the operation in Cuneo province. Müller arrives on October 11th. He brings 40 Waffen SS men with him. He brings dogs. Right now on the Col de la Lombard, with Estra on his back and the wind shifting and his 14 ahead and his 14 behind, Lanza does not yet know about Müller. He will know about him in 8 days. By then, his brother will already be in the ground. The wind tilts. The granite walls go silver. Lanza taps the boy in front of him on the shoulder and points with his chin to the left, where the trail bends behind a rock outcrop that nobody who has not been over the pass before would even see. The line bends after him. Esther stirs against his neck. The pouch knocks against his ribs. In 14 months, he will know the name of every person on the list, alive or dead. In 14 days, he will lose his brother. In 14 hours, he will hand this group across to the Swiss border post at Bruzio. But first, he has to get down off this mountain. And first, before that, he has to remember how he became someone capable of any of it. Francesco Lanza was born in March 1909 in a stone house at the upper end of Venadio. His father was a salt smuggler. His grandfather was a salt smuggler. The Lanza family had been moving Sicilian salt and Piedmontese tobacco over the Maritime Alps for as long as anyone in the valley could remember. A smuggler in 1920s Piemonte was not a criminal in the modern sense. A small sack of unrefined salt bought for 2 lire on the Var side could be sold for 9 on the Piedmont side, and the difference paid the rent. The Carabinieri tolerated it. Their fathers had done the same. The fascist customs guards under Mussolini did not. By the time Francesco was 16, two of his uncles had been shot on the Col de la Lombard for refusing to drop their sacks. The family stopped using the lower trail. That was when Francesco's father taught him the upper one. It is not on any map. The Italian Geographical Institute did not survey it. The French gendarmerie did not patrol it. It branches off from the main pass road about 400 meters below the col, where a granite outcrop hides the turn so completely that even a man who knows the trail has to count his paces from a specific birch tree. From there, it climbs at a brutal angle for 2 hours, traverses a snowfield, drops behind a second ridge, and rejoins the main route on the French side at a stone hut, where, in summer, a single shepherd grazes 32 goats. The shepherd's name is Marius. He has been part of the smuggling chain since before Francesco was born. By 19, Francesco knew the upper trail in fog, in snow, in moonlight, and with a 40-kilo sack on his back. There is a way the mist sits on the Lombard when it is safe to cross. There is another way it sits when the mountain is going to kill you, and the difference is a shading on the rock that takes about 10 years of looking to even notice. He noticed. He was illiterate until he was 26. Francesco learned to read in 1935 from a Salesian priest in Borgo San Dalmazzo, who had once tried to enter the seminary and lasted 6 months before admitting he could not bear to be indoors. The priest's name was Don Raimondo Viale, the same Don Viale who would, 8 years later, sit at the parish desk and write out lists of Jewish refugees on a sheet of paper, slowly in block letters, while Francesco watched and learned to memorize the spellings. In 1936, Francesco married a girl from Diamante named Caterina. 2 children followed. The household was quiet, ordinary, and uninterested in politics. He did not join the fascist party. The local podesta overlooked the lapse because Francesco supplied his kitchen with unrationed olive oil at half price. This is the man who, on the morning of September 13, 1943, walks into the parish house in Borgo San Dalmazzo and tells Don Viale that he wants the names of every Jewish family hiding in the valley. Don Viale is not surprised. He has been waiting for someone to say it. The priest has been part of an informal aid network since 1942, connected through a quiet Italian charity called Delasem, which had been operating semi-legally under the Italian Fourth Army's protection for almost 2 years. After September 8th, Delasem lost most of its offices in a week. The Genoa branch was raided. Several of its leading figures were deported east, and most did not return. What remained in the Maritime Alps was a handful of priests, a handful of farmers, and a salt smuggler with a goat leather pouch. The first month is improvisation. Lanza walks groups of 6 and 7 over the lower passes by night. He hands them to Marius at the stone hut, and Marius walks them down into the Var Valley to a contact in Saint-Sauveur-sur-Tinée, who walks them to a Quaker family in Nice, who can issue forged Swiss transit papers. The chain has weak links. Twice in October, refugees disappear between the hut and Saint-Sauveur. He never finds out what happened. He draws a line through their names in pencil and walks back up the mountain. The system that emerges has 3 legs. Lanza on the high passes in groups of 14. A Swiss contact named Sigi Brunner, a Lutheran pastor in the canton of Graubünden, who meets the couriers at Bruzio. And the money from Delasem accounts moved to Switzerland before the occupation, paying for food, coats, boots, and the 2 Italian carabinieri in Venadio who looked the other way for 300 lire and a bottle of grappa per crossing. Lanza never sees the money. The priest handles the money. Lanza handles the names and the trail. By October 18th, the network has moved 192 refugees over the passes. Not one of them has been caught above the tree line. The records, which Don Viale keeps in a hollowed-out hymnal under the sacristy floor, list every name, every date, every outcome. Mueller arrives in Cuneo on October 11th. Within 4 days, he has identified Venadio as the staging point. By October 16th, he has the name Lanza, from a French collaborator who has noticed the same Italian smuggler showing up at the bakery, the rectory, and Costabel's Inn, always in the same week, always before someone disappears. On October 18th, Mueller sends a Waffen SS patrol up the road from Cuneo into Venadio. They do not find Francesco. He is on the upper trail with a group of 9. They find his brother instead. Stefano Lanza was 38, a bricklayer all his life. He had nothing to do with the network. He liked to play scopa in the village inn and had never carried a sack over the Lombard because Francesco was the smuggler and Stefano was the bricklayer, and that was how the family had always sorted itself. The Waffen SS took him from the inn at 4 in the afternoon. They drove him to a quarry above Diamante and shot him in the back of the head and left the body to be found by a goat herd the next morning. Mueller's after-action report, recovered after the war, calls the killing a reprisal aimed at the brother. The brother's name is not in the report. Mueller did not consider it necessary to record it. Francesco hears about Stefano on the evening of October 19th, when he comes down off the upper trail and meets Don Viale at a rendezvous point along the goat track above Venadio. The priest tells him in 3 sentences. Francesco listens. He does not sit down, he does not weep. He asks the priest who is next on the list. 22 people are waiting in St. Martin Vesubie, says Don Viale. A family from Antwerp with a pregnant mother. 4 children whose parents were arrested in Nice. The rabbi from Strasbourg's nephew. Francesco says, then we go tomorrow night. He sleeps 4 hours in a hayloft with his coat folded under his head. He does not go home. He does not see his wife. He will not see her again for 51 days. This is the rhythm that establishes itself. Lanza crosses twice a week, then 3, then 4. He sleeps in haylofts, in shepherd's huts, in the storeroom behind Costabel's Inn. He eats bread and onions and drinks aqua vita to keep his hands from cracking. He loses 8 kilograms between October 19th and November 22nd. The pouch grows thicker. The line through Stefano Lanza's name is the only one Francesco draws himself in pen instead of pencil. He never explains why. Estimates of how many refugees moved through the Venadio chain in the final 8 weeks of 1943 will later range from 400 to 600. The exact figure is one of those numbers historians have argued about for decades. What is certain is that, by the morning of December 23rd, when the operation comes within an hour of being shut down for good, Lanza has crossed the Maritime Alps 31 times, has slept in his own bed twice, and has added 674 names to the list. 674 names, 4 lines drawn through. Before we cross the Lombard one more time with him, a small interruption. This channel survives on stories like this one. Subscribe if you would like the next one to find you. Now, back to the high pass, where the wind has just changed direction, and as Sicker-Heitstein's captain has finally guessed the answer to the only question keeping him awake at night. The question is not where the refugees come from. The question is, which trail? Mueller is not a stupid man. He has been a customs officer in Bavaria before the war. He understands smugglers the way a fisherman understands the river. By the second week of November, he has accepted that there is an upper route his maps do not show. On December 20th, he gets his break. A Vichy gendarme in Saint Martin Vesubie, paid in sugar and German cigarettes, names the birch tree. Just one tree, in a forest of birches, on a goat track outside Venadio, where the trail bends behind the granite outcrop. The collaborator does not know the trail itself. He has only heard that the smuggler counts paces from a particular tree. The gendarme knows it is the 3rd one above the village fountain, on the left side of the track, with a forked top. That is enough. On December 22nd, a Waffen SS detachment of 9 men begins climbing the trail from Venadio at dawn. They reach the birch tree by mid-morning. They count paces. They climb. They find the granite outcrop. They find the turn. They start up the upper trail. At that exact hour, on the French side, Francesco Lanza is sitting in the cellar of the bakery in St. Martin Vesubie, drinking ersatz coffee with the baker's wife and waiting for nightfall. In the cellar with him are 14 people. A pregnant woman from Antwerp, her husband, her sister, 2 cousins, both school teachers, 3 children who lost their parents in October, the rabbi's nephew from Strasbourg, now 16, a widow from Vienna, a clockmaker from Prague, a Polish chessmaster named Tartakauer, a boy of 7 with 1 shoe. These are the 14 Lanza intends to walk across the Lombard that night. And behind him, descending through the bakery hatch at the back of the village square, an Austrian resistance courier whom Lanza has never met, who has just walked 4 hours from Borgo San Dalmazzo, with news she does not yet know how to say in French, slips on the cellar steps and breaks her ankle. When she finally speaks, what she says is this: "The SS are on the upper trail. They are halfway to the col. By nightfall, they will be at the stone hut. By morning, they will be on the French side." How does an illiterate smuggler outrun 9 Waffen SS men with dogs on a trail they now know? And what does he do with the 14 people behind him when the only path he has ever known is no longer his? The Austrian courier is still on the cellar floor, breathing through her teeth. The baker's wife is splinting the ankle. Lanza is on his feet. He has not moved for almost a minute. The 14 in the cellar watch him. Tartakower, the chessmaster, watches him longest. He has seen men think before. Lanza speaks once. 5 words. "We leave in 10 minutes. The route he picks is one he has used twice in his life. It crosses the Col de Cerise instead of the Lombard, drops west into the upper Var, climbs again through a notch above the village of Buzanca, and joins a goat path that descends into the Stura Valley, 5 kilometers south of Venadio. It adds 11 kilometers to the night. It adds 400 meters of climbing. 3 of the 14 are barely capable of the original route. One is a pregnant woman in her 7th month. Another is a clockmaker from Prague with a heart condition the priest has been worried about for a week. Lanza does not put it to a vote. They leave the cellar at 4 in the afternoon, snow already falling. The baker's wife stays with the courier. She will hide her under sacks of flour and, 3 nights later, help her down to Nice on a milk lorry, where the resistance will set the ankle properly. The courier will live until 1997. The baker himself walks the column out of Saint-Martin-Vesubie through a back lane behind the church. The first hour is grade. The second is grade plus snow. By the third, the pregnant woman is on the verge of collapse. Lanza unbuttons his coat, takes off his second wool shirt, and ties it around her ribs as a chest binding. He carries her satchel. He carries the youngest boy. He counts the column every 50 steps. He has rung twice about the route in the dark. He corrects himself once by smelling the air for the marsh below the Buzanca notch, and once by feeling for the line of a stream under the snow with the toe of his boot. Both corrections take less than a minute. Both save the column. At 11 at night, he stops the line at a stone hut. He is not sure he has remembered correctly. He goes in alone. The hut is empty. Firewood in the back, dry and stacked, left by some other smuggler some other winter. He brings them in. He lights the fire because the clockmaker is gray and the pregnant woman has stopped speaking. He gives them 4 hours. While they sleep, he stands at the door of the hut and reads the sky. The wind tilts a quarter of the way south. The fog on the granite below the notch goes from white to a slightly bluer white, and he knows that the storm is breaking. He also knows that the breaking will give him perhaps 3 hours of clear sky before dawn. After that, the upper Var Valley will be visible from the higher German observation posts above Isola. He has, he calculates, until 5 in the morning to be off the notch and below the tree line on the Italian side. It is at this moment, in the doorway of the hut at midnight, that he thinks of the 14 still in the bakery cellar. The line in his head will not stop reordering itself. 14 ahead, 14 behind. The 14 ahead are sleeping under his roof. The 14 behind are in the cellar he has just walked out of, 4 hours and 11 kilometers ago, with 9 Waffen SS men on the only trail back, and a baker and his wife, and an Austrian courier with a broken ankle to defend them. Müller is methodical. The Germans will be at the call by 5. They will be at the bakery by 10. He thinks about it the way he thinks about granite walls. He counts what he can save against what he must risk. He wakes the chessmaster. He wakes the rabbi from Strasbourg's nephew. He wakes the cousin from Antwerp, a quiet man with a builder's hands. He tells them in the slow, careful Italian he uses for people who do not speak it, that he is going back. They will lead the column the rest of the way. He gives the chessmaster the goat leather pouch. He gives the rabbi's nephew the small, folded map that Don Viale had drawn for him in October. He gives the Antwerp cousin a Beretta pistol he has been carrying since September and has never fired. He says he will meet them in Brusio in 5 days. He does not say he will meet them in Brusio if he is alive. Tartakower asks him one question, in French. Why? Lanza is bending to lace his boot. He answers without looking up. 14, he says. Then 14. He goes out into the snow. The story of those 4 words comes from the cousin from Antwerp, who repeats them in 1986 to a Yad Vashem researcher in Jerusalem. Lanza moves back along the trail he has just walked. He moves faster now. He has no children to carry. He has the upper trail in his legs and the breaking storm at his back, and he reaches the bakery in Saint-Martin-Vésubie at 20 past 4 in the morning of December 23rd, while the Waffen SS detachment is still descending the French side of the Lombard and is 2.5 hours from the village. He wakes the 14 in the cellar. He does not waste words. The pregnant Antwerp woman is alive, he tells them. They will see her in Switzerland. They leave now. The baker hands him a loaf of bread, 2 heads of hard cheese, and a half bottle of brandy. The baker's wife pushes a wool blanket into the arms of a girl whose name Francesco still does not know. The route he chooses for the second crossing is the smallest, oldest, hardest path he knows. The one his grandfather walked in 1879. It runs along the south face of the Cima della Lombarda and crosses a saddle at 2,410 meters before dropping into the Venadio side. Brutal. It is also, on December 23rd, almost certainly the only trail in the Maritime Alps that Müller does not yet have an informant for. The crossing takes 19 hours. 3 of the 14 will remember being carried for parts of it. One, a Viennese tailor named Bruno Hirsch, will remember stopping at a switchback halfway up the south face and finding, half buried in the snow at the foot of a juniper bush, a small red wool mitten. Child-sized, left hand. He will pick it up. Lanza will take it from him and put it inside his coat without a word. It is the mitten that Esther, the 4-year-old from the November crossing, had lost on her way down the Italian side a month earlier. Her mother had cried about it for an hour at the border. Lanza had promised to look for it. He will give it back to her on Christmas Eve in a refugee hostel in the Swiss town of Chur. Esther will give it back to him to take home. The second column reaches Brusio at 3 in the morning on Christmas Eve. Siggy Brunner meets them at the customs hut and walks them down to a Swiss Red Cross truck waiting in a railway shed. The chessmaster and the column from the Cerise side have been at Chur since the previous night. Of the 28 people Lanza has walked out of Saint-Martin-Vésubie in 72 hours, 26 arrive in Switzerland alive. The Polish chessmaster's wife dies on the Cerise approach of a heart attack. A boy of 9 named Aaron freezes above Buzanka Notch and is buried by the column in a shepherd's hollow, with no marker because there is no time to make one. 2 lines in pencil. Lanza will draw them 3 days later, in the parish house at Borgo San Dalmazzo, with Don Viale standing behind him. The Waffen SS detachment reaches the bakery at 6:20 on the morning of December 23rd. They find an empty cellar and a fire still warm. They arrest the baker and his wife. They do not find the courier in the rear pantry. The baker dies of pneumonia in March 1944 at a transit camp near Modena. The wife lives. She returns to Saint-Martin-Vésubie in 1945, reopens the bakery, and dies in 1971. There is a plaque on the wall of the building now, with 3 names on it. The baker's is the second. Müller never catches Lanza. He gets close once, in February 1944, when a courier from Saint-Sauveur is captured and tortured for 31 hours before he dies without speaking. Müller is reassigned to Lyon in March and killed in May by a partisan grenade thrown from a balcony on the Rue du Lac. Lanza crosses the Maritime Alps 47 times between September 1943 and April 1945. He walks across with 811 names. He brings 808 of them alive into Switzerland. The 3 lines are the chessmaster's wife, the boy Aaron Hirsch, and a Belgian rabbi named Levitan, who dies of exposure in February at a saddle Lanza had to recross alone to retrieve the body, because the rabbi had asked him not to be left for the foxes. After the war, Lanza does not seek recognition. He goes back to smuggling salt for 2 more years because the ration system is still in place and his children need shoes. He stops in 1947, when his wife asks him to. He works in a quarry until 1968. He gives one interview in Lugano and then refuses every other request for 23 years. In 1991, the State of Israel gives him the Medal of the Righteous among the nations. In Jerusalem, he says 4 sentences. 3 of them are thank you in 3 different languages. The 4th, rendered from his own Piedmontese dialect, is, I am here for the 3. He dies in 2004, at the age of 95, in the same stone house at the top of Venadio where he was born. He did not cross back for medals. He could not have explained even to himself why he turned around at the door of a stone hut at midnight on December 22nd with 14 people warm and asleep behind him, and another 14 4 hours away in a cellar he had no obligation to. He went back because he had counted them. He had written their names. He had agreed to know. The pouch in his coat at the end of the war held 811 names. 3 of them carried a pencil line through the surname. The 4th line, the one through his brother Stefano, was in ink. There is a path on the south face of the Cima della Lombarda that hikers from Cuneo walk in summer now. It has no name on the official Italian maps. The villagers of Venadio call it the Salt Road, and on a small wooden sign at the trailhead, 3 names are carved below the title, in the order in which they died. If this story stayed with you, there are more on the channel. Subscribe if you would like the next one delivered when it lands.